Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Deborah Exner, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate, as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. Joining us this evening is Ms. Paula Thomas with the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. The Clean Elections Act was created to allow campaigns to be more issue-oriented and less negative. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who participate voluntarily. The candidates agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules, which include contribution and spending limits, foregoing special interest money, as well as participating in these commission debates. The candidates invited to participate tonight are in contested general elections. Candidates in uncontested general elections are not included in the debate process. For tonight's debate, questions have been prepared by Clean Elections based on a voter survey, as well as questions that have been submitted by voters through the Clean Elections smartphone app. However, we encourage live audience questions first. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the note cards given to you as you entered and hold them up. Our volunteers will pick up the cards and deliver them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. We screen questions for clarity to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for 90 minutes, so we may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. There's an independent timer who will see that the candidates all have their allotted time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. As a courtesy to the other candidates, please respect the time limits. When the timer raises the stop sign, the moderator will stop the candidate. Tonight's debate includes 1-minute opening statements, a lightning round. The first half of the debate begins with 2 minutes to answer audience questions. Each candidate will answer the same audience question, and we will rotate who begins answering each question. After all candidates have responded to the first question, the first responding candidate will be given an additional 30 seconds. The second half will allow a different question per candidate with 1 minute to answer. Then we end with 1-minute closing statements. If you have questions for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on the top of the card. It will be considered during the second half of the debate. We ask that you remain polite to all of the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. Tonight's participants are running for office in District 29, Ms. Crystal Nuttall, Republican, running for the senator, Mr. Martin Quesada, Democrat, also running for senator, Mr. Richard Andrade, Democrat, running for representative, and Mr. John Wilson, Republican and Clean Elections candidate, running for representative. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate, and will progress from that starting point. The order for the second half will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name, starting with the House. Ms. Nuttall, will you start with the opening remarks, please?
Sure. My name is Crystal Nuttall, and I'm running for Senate in LD 29. And I know that all those, all those that know me know that I love God, I love children, I love families, I love America. And I have a passion to be your voice in LD 29. And I will be available, and I will work tirelessly to help my constituents to improve life in their families in every realm. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada.
Thank you. My name is Martin Quesada. I am a lifelong resident of the state of Arizona, first-generation resident. And most of my life I've lived here in District 29. I'm an attorney, I'm a small business owner, I own my own law practice, and I've been elected by this community several times, first as a school board member, as your state representative, and now as your state senator. My goal is to get reelected again so that I can continue to provide a progressive long-term vision for what the state of Arizona should be 20 years from now, not just tomorrow. District 29 is a microcosm of what the entire state will look like 10, 15, 20 years from now. So the problems and issues that we are dealing with today are issues that we will be dealing with as an entire state later. My goal is to be a voice for the people of District 29 today, but also be a voice for the people of all of Arizona tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade.
Hi, my name is Richard Andrade. I am currently a state representative representing Legislative District 29, but my real job is I'm a certified locomotive engineer with BNSF Railroad. The reason I got involved in politics as well, it's simple to see. We need to be progressive when it comes to issues that concern Arizona, when it comes to education, making sure that we properly fund education, provide better paying jobs for working families who are struggling every day to put food on the table, keep the electricity on. But most importantly, we must take care of all people, not just one certain group of people in our state, but all people. And that's what I've been doing, is fighting for the working families in District 29, but also for the state, because I see a lot of things going on with working families, the struggles that they're facing every day. Let's be honest, we need better paying jobs. We also need to make sure those jobs, when they do come to Arizona, provide benefits and most importantly, retirement. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
My name is John Wilson, and I've lived in this district since 1961, nearly continuously or close by. And I'm very familiar with the community and its problems. And I want to take a minute and thank the Clean Elections, not only for this debate, but for all the help they've been. I'm a first-time candidate, and I think I'm the only one running clean. And there are many surprises that you're unaware of when you go to run. And the Clean Elections people go out of their way to help. So I would encourage everybody else in here, if you have an opportunity, do run and go clean. That's my opening statement.
Thank you. To break the ice, we'll start with a quick lightning round. Please answer with one word. Mr. Quesada, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
CNN.
Mr. Andrade, Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Mr. Wilson, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, let's do Star Wars.
Ms. Nuttall, Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah.
Starbucks.
Okay. All right, now we'll begin the first half of our debate where each candidate will answer the same question. The first question is for Mr. Andrade. If you were to be elected, what would be the first bill you would submit, and what would you consider your most important issue to address?
Well, I've always sponsored the for-profit private prison bills because in our state, our for-profit private prisons signed a contract with the state mandating that we keep these prison beds manned. Well, guess what? We're putting more money into the for-profit private industry than we are in education. In a survey, over 70% say they'd rather fund education. The bills that I've been introducing and will continue to introduce are we, as taxpayers, our stewards of the taxpayer dollar, should know where every single penny goes into the for-profit private prison industry. They don't have to disclose what they do, which tells me that somebody's collecting a lot of money and doing whatever they want with it. We shouldn't allow that. And that's the kind of bills I will continue to introduce because I believe in transparency. They should be held accountable for every single penny that the taxpayers put into the for-profit private industry. And the other thing is prison guards that do work at these for-profit private industries. They're low paid, which means that where is the money going to? They don't have the proper training. And we saw, for example, in Kingman, Arizona, what happened up there. A lot of it had to do with the prison guards that were up there, the way they were treating the prisoners. So once again, us being stewards of the taxpayer dollar, we should be prioritizing education as our number one priority, not the for-profit private prison industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, same question.
First legislation is kind of a tricky question, but I think probably the very first bill in the hopper would be for jobs. Our community needs more and better paying jobs, and there are many things to do that can help with that. Sometimes it's not making a new law, sometimes it's reducing red tape. We could create an enterprise zone that would encourage large businesses to come into the community. And workforce training is very important to me because our students come out of school not ready for the workplace, and as a result, we have to train adults. And that would help because instead of minimum wage jobs, they'll be getting jobs that are paying $25 to, say, $65 an hour.
Thank you. Ms. Nuttall, same question.
I would say better jobs is to create better jobs, which jobs is linked to less crime. When someone has a higher paying job, that means crime is down, and therefore the improved education would be there because there would be higher taxes, more taxes that would come into the education schools for the classroom and the teachers. It would provide better skills because there's thousands of jobs that are opened and no one's qualified to fill them. And it goes back to our education once again, but when you have better paying jobs, you can encourage corporations to come into the East or the West Valley, a lot of property there to fill up, and I would be an advocate for that. And therefore, it would go into more reasonable health care, and we would really divorce the Obamacare to have higher paying jobs. And therefore, we could give subsidies to the lower income families and have the single moms go to work and make a living for their children. And kids care, we could bring back kids care into the subsidies for health care and for daycare. And it would just, better jobs links to every issue for the family. And I would just work in going to my constituents and have an open door policy to really brainstorm in how this could be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, same question.
Well, I have introduced more legislation than any member of the Senate and most members of the House over the last 5 years since I've been there. Everything from public education to criminal justice reform to economic development. I introduce a vision of what I want Arizona to be every single year. 3 of the bills that jump to the front of my mind that I've worked some of the hardest on, one would be involving voting. I believe that I'm a champion for all voters, regardless of what your political party is, and I would want to implement an automatic voter registration and or a same-day voter registration system here in Arizona to allow for all voters to be able to cast a vote in the election to ensure that their vote is counted. Another bill would be a ban the box bill, which is an actual jobs bill. It would allow many of the constituents here in District 29 to be judged on their merits, not on past mistakes, and have access to some of the jobs working in municipal, state, and other government offices here in Arizona. And lastly, the last one I would introduce would be one that I've brought forward for the last several years since I first got appointed to office, and that deals with ethics. I believe that the state of Arizona should have an independent ethics commission to look at all candidates, look at all elected officials, and determine if they are following the law, if they are acting within their ethical guidelines, and to call them out if they aren't doing so. Right now, we police ourselves, and when we police ourselves, bad things happen. And so, like many other states, I believe we should have an independent ethics commission, and that would be one of the bills I would propose.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, you have 30 seconds to respond, if you'd like, to whatever you've heard.
Once again, what are we doing here in our state? We need to pass more legislation that protects working families by making sure that we fund education, making sure, because we've always said, we fund education, we're going to have economic development, which means we're going to have a qualified and skilled workforce to be able to work in those jobs. That is the number one answer, because over 70% of Arizonians have said, let's fund education.
Okay, thank you. Next question will begin with Mr. Wilson. The most recent Department of Education test scores show 65% of Arizona children don't meet minimum state competency standards. What would you do to change that?
Well, the test scores aren't always accurate, and the teachers do their best to assure that the students are prepared for not only the subject matter that they're learning, but also often I've spoken to teachers, they teach for the test, which really is a waste of time. One of the major problems they have is that there's lack of discipline within the classroom. Unruly students rob the education from the rest of the students. So I would propose that a remedy be passed that unruly students are removed or disciplined in such a way that they no longer interfere with the education of other students. Teacher pay is a big problem, because you can go in any school district and talk to the administration, and they will tell you that their best teachers leave the school district where they are and move to other places. So teacher pay is a big issue, and I think we need to kind of pull back and have a real honest discussion about what teacher pay should be. Not each school district will decide for themselves, but there should be a guideline that is just universally discussed, and maybe some resolution could be found there that will help us stop this every year. What it really is like a panic situation. We need a broader view so that we can have a more time's
Thank
up.
you.
Okay.
Ms. Nuttall, same question.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. The most recent Department of Education test scores show 65% of Arizona children don't meet minimum state competency standards. What would you do to change that?
Well, first of all, after Prop 123, teachers are leaving by the droves in Arizona. The Prop 123 took away accountability in how money is distributed, and that's a crisis right there. I think we were robbed. Arizona was robbed with Prop 123, and the teachers were, and they were given false hope. So that I'm very indignant about that, and I believe that when there's accountability, there should be forensic auditing. I understand that that's not feasible or even. I don't understand why. I've been told, well, you can't audit the money that goes out from the state, but I would probably work in some kind of bill to bring that accountability to the forefront. And with the scores, the schoolroom has so many students. Of course there's going to be low scores. There shouldn't be over 20 children in a schoolroom, and that's an atrocity. We have double that, if not more. And I would work on really limiting the schoolroom children to the teacher, and make teachers come in and give them their pay, worth their wages. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada.
The first thing we need to always understand is that we are in the middle of the result of changed standards in Arizona and a new assessment that we've implemented in our schools. That adds to the fact that scores have been declining recently. We can expect that those scores will begin to climb as we ease into the new assessment and the new standards. But aside from that, the biggest issue with our schools right now, and there's no other way around this, is funding. We have cut billions of dollars from our K-12 education and our community colleges and our universities, for that matter, over the last several years. And without that basic level of funding, our schools will continue to struggle, and they are continuing to struggle right now. Prop 123 was not the answer. It was stated it was going to be step one. We have yet to see step two. Prop 123 addressed a tiny little bit of our funding problem in our K-12 education. As to taking away accountability, it actually did not do that. The overwhelming majority of school districts across the state gave Prop 123 money to teacher raises. So teachers, that went directly into the classroom to keep teachers. Needing more auditing, I wanted to address that as well. Our public schools right now are some of the most heavily audited institutions in all of the state of Arizona. We go through private audits, we go through public audits, and every single dollar of spending in our schools is accounted for and will be shown to you, the public. And that's a result of the massive requirements that we have for protecting taxpayer dollars. If you want to be more aware of that, you really need to pay attention to what's happening at your local school districts and your school governing boards. Right now, we need to have a legislature that advocates for a responsible investment in public education, and we haven't had that in Arizona for quite some time.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade.
Yes. We had a lot of forums with the Prop 123 when we were talking about Prop 123. I'm going to tell you what educators said. Leave education to the educators and not to the state legislature. I strongly believe that because Prop 123 was supposed to be the first step, but guess what? It wasn't. Our teachers do need raises. The legislature needs to fund education. Last session, once again, we did not fund education. What's one of the biggest drains on our education to the dollars going into our classrooms? Empowerment scholarship accounts, school vouchers, funding for-profit, private, charter schools. A lot of our money from the general fund goes to those organizations, to those kind of programs. And the other thing, when it comes to what are we doing here? Common Core. I support Common Core because I've visited so many classrooms where the teachers have said, everybody's saying do away with Common Core, but nobody has come up with another solution to Common Core. We have spent millions and millions of dollars on Common Core, and now they want to replace it with what? Nobody's offered a solution, nobody's offered advice about it. So right now, Common Core, what it does is standardizes and prepares our children for a global economy. Right now, our students don't just stay in one place. They don't stay in our neighborhoods. They move across the state. They move across the world. So we need to standardize and make sure that when you go to school here in Phoenix, Arizona, that you're going to get the same level of education in Winslow, Arizona, or in Hawaii, or even in Japan. So you want to take care of these levels? Fund education is the bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, your 30-second response?
Okay, I'll finish my thought that I ran out of time on. The legislature is not to run the day-to-day business of education, but they can have an overall view and guidance that will help, not hinder, the school districts. And to do that, they need to have a serious discussion, an overview, and implementation that, again, helps the schools, not hurts them. And
Thank you.
Time's up.
Next question will begin with Ms. Nuttall. What is your specific plan for attracting tech companies to the state of Arizona?
Well, like I said in my other answer to the other question, I would get a staff or a committee that would have a think tank in how to approach CEOs and other companies to bring them to the West Valley and have innovated technology. I know Kentucky has a really great technology, and with the latest cars, the Corvette, I think, is made there. And they said that their average job pays the average job pays 58 to 60,000. And that's what I would like to see for Arizona. But they're saying at the same time, there's like thousands of jobs that people are not even qualified for. So I would get maybe even like vocational school with technology that would bring in education, those that would really fill those jobs, and we would educate them to fill that job. So other companies would know that there would be a lot of people here that would qualify for what they're looking for to land their home in our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure.
Thank you.
What is your specific plan for attracting tech companies to the state of Arizona?
You know, again, this really comes down to funding public education. If we expect high-level technology and complicated and technical industries to come to Arizona, they're going to need an educated workforce that knows how to work in that area. Unfortunately, over the past several years, again, we've cut billions of dollars from our schools, and the workforce is going to be hard to find employees to work in that industry. That involves funding public education, but again, also specific parts of public education, our joint technological education districts, our JTEDs. That's something and that's a real reason why it's important to elect Democrats to the legislature. Democrats have been fighting for that JTED funding for years. The Republicans cut that out of the last budget, and then the outrage came out from the JTED community, from the technological community, to say that we needed those JTEDs to be funded, and the Republican majority had to come back in and put it back in only after the industry cried foul. And these are programs that we have been supporting for many, many years because it's a long-term vision about what the state needs. That type of education, those vocational programs, those JTED programs are important because it provides us a workforce into the future. That's one thing I've done not only as a legislator supporting those programs, but as a school board member as well, as we've implemented technology academies in the school district where I serve at now.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, same question.
Yes, once again, we're back to the education issue because it does circle around back to that. What are they saying? They need a skilled workforce. Well, the only way you're going to have a skilled workforce is making sure that you have educated people that can work in these factories or work in these businesses. The other thing we need to do is lower tuition in our universities because 2 years ago, they cut $99 billion out of our universities and colleges, cut zero funding to our community colleges. Once again, that is the gateway for us to get a skilled workforce. But every year when we talk about this and try to get this GOP-led legislature to understand that, they don't want to hear it because they rather invested once again into other priorities, for-profit private prisons. We need to implement the angel tax credits, which attract high-tech jobs. And once again, making sure that we reinforce and invest in our JTEDs and CTEs, because what do? They prepare high school students. For example, there's a high school in our district that has a apprenticeship program, or better yet, a program where they have nurses, where the students go into a hospital and learn about nursing. And the one thing that really impressed me about that was they had a student who wanted to be a nurse but decided, I don't want to do this. So they led her in a different direction, in a different nursing position. Now she's successful. This is what our students need in today's world to be in order to succeed. Because I always say it, when our students are successful, then we're all successful. So back to let's take care of education, and we'll see everything else line up.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
If you want businesses to come into the state, you have to attract them, and what attracts them is profit. And also the environment that they're going to be relocating into. And again, of course, profit means a skilled labor force, which everybody seems to agree on. But it's not always just throwing more money into a big pool. Why does Phoenix University charge a great deal more than the public universities? And people are quite willing to pay it. So that, to me, indicates that maybe the universities have some need to look at how they are presenting education and maybe the whole structure should be reevaluated. The other part about the community that they're moving into, they want what we all want, but maybe don't have in sufficient amount, which is a good neighborhood that's safe and growing. And the state legislature can help in all these different areas, and they can take the lead. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Nettle, your 30-second response.
Okay. I thought I answered that question, but the response to his response?
If you have anything you'd like to add, you have
Oh.
an additional 30 seconds.
Okay. Oh, sure. Well, I do believe that our school system is in a crisis, and it all leads back to the job skills and how many adults, high school graduates, are going to be successful adults in society. So I would be an advocate to really work hard and tirelessly to make that happen for Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we will begin with Mr. Quesada. According to DES's most recent numbers, roughly 60,000 people in LD 29 live in poverty. What should the role of government be in helping lift these families out of poverty?
Well, I believe the government plays a very important role in helping to lift people out of poverty. It's not just the government's role, but the government does play a role, along with all of the nonprofit institutions, our religious institutions, our educational institutions. But the government does play a part in that. Part of that is ensuring that our children are well educated. Part of that includes laying down a basic safety net for people who are struggling through difficult times, and providing health care to individuals to ensure that they are healthy. If, as a government, we aren't ensuring that our citizens and our community is safe, educated, healthy, then we are failing as a government. I think one of the big problems that we've had here in Arizona is that we have cut all of those basic safety net services to a point where people can't keep their heads above water here in our community, especially in District 29. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem because we are now at the bottom of the list in terms of the entire nation of some of these services that we provide to people. TANF benefits. Kids care was a struggle to get that passed to ensure basic health care for children in Arizona. That should not have been such a difficult struggle to get that passed here in Arizona. These are some basics. They aren't government handouts. They are safety nets that allow for people to get services that they need so that they can get off of the services and then be successful later.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade?
Yes, I'm going to piggyback on what Senator Quesada was talking about. For the last 2 years, we have cut, or they have cut, SNAP and TANF. What does that do to people who are struggling to put food on the table? It makes them struggle more. The other issue is equalization of funding for our education. Our schools do not get the funding, per se, like the ones do in Scottsdale. Why? It's all based upon property taxes, once again. So what are we doing here? Because education funding is based upon your district, because of property values, where some of that money comes out of. So, of course, the schools in Scottsdale are like I hear every single day I'm there, while our top schools are here on the East Valley. Well, guess what? We have the same kind of education here on the West Valley if we properly funded that education and brought out equalization funding to all our school districts here on the West Valley. Why is it that in the East Valley, and I'm not taking anything away from the East Valley, but why is it certain schools have certain programs where here on the West Valley we have teachers who are struggling to provide basic guitars for a guitar class? Once again, it comes back to that funding, making sure that we fund all our schools equally, but making sure that they get the proper funding to have those same programs here. We're talking about sports. We're talking about music programs. We need to provide this in order for our students here in the West Valley to be successful as well. And when it comes to the poverty, once again, where do most of the constituents here on LD 29 work? Low-paying jobs. Once again, I always talk about education equals higher paying jobs, which equals better funding for our education system here on the West Valley. So we need to address several issues and start having a better equalization.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Okay, 60,000 families living in poverty is a really bad number. And we're talking primarily about economic issue. So obviously we get back to the education and better jobs. But for a family to live in poverty as they work their way out of poverty, they have needs for health care and for food. And the food is, as far as I can tell, pretty well taken care of through public and private means. Health care is a real problem with the federal program and state programs not aligned together. We don't want to stifle their initiative, the people in poverty. We don't want to take away their dignity. We don't want to give them a handout, but a hand up, and to really help them out of that problem. And if health issues are a real problem, especially when you have young children, the state should be there as a last resort, not the first thing. But we need compassion in the laws that we pass and in the way we implement them, and also to try and avoid the unintended consequences that so often come up, like Obamacare has illustrated. Hopefully we can do a much better job at the state level than the federal government has done at the national level.
Thank you. Ms. Nuttall?
Yes, I would really work hard in focusing on providing opportunities for people to get off the welfare system. And like I said, it goes back to education for better jobs. It brings the crime rate down, and the single mothers, that they would have the same opportunity for their children. I believe in school choice, but that they would have the same opportunity regardless what area they live in to have a choice where they want their children to go to school. And just would give them a sense of confidence in themselves when they can have better paying jobs and know that their children have the same funding as any other child across Arizona. So I would really work at policies to implement that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, your 30 seconds.
I think far too often we debate the wrong end of the poverty debate. We debate far too often what we are giving out as a government instead of debating what we should be doing or what we have failed to do to prevent people from being victims of poverty in the first place. And we have failed as a state on that regard. Let's help people stop falling into being victims of poverty in the first place. We fought against kids' care. We reduced TANF. We've eliminated full-day K. We've criminalized aspects of poverty. We've criminalized mental health and substance abuse. We need to do better.
Time is up. Okay. The next question will begin with Mr. Andrade. We've heard a lot tonight about cuts to education. What should we be cutting to better protect our budget? Please be specific.
Okay. When it comes to education funding and what better control can we have to properly fund education? Earlier I spoke about empowerment scholarship accounts and school vouchers. Well, that drains money out of our general fund. The other one is private charter schools. These private charter schools get to choose which students they want to allow into their schools. Our public school, which is right around the corner from where I live and which is from around the corner in many of our neighborhoods, why aren't they getting the necessary funding? Why are our parents having to send their children out of their neighborhood, clear across the valley, perhaps to the East Valley, because they offer certain programs somewhere else? Shouldn't we be ensuring that that school around the corner gets the proper funding to have the same kind of programs on the East Valley? Yes. So when it comes to what are we doing, where is that money? Once again, for-profit private prisons. We invest more money in the prison system which cost us $27,000 a year per inmate, when education funding could cost us $7,200 a year. I already see a cost savings right there if we put more money into education, but we don't do that. And these tax cuts, these tax credits, all this that we give to these businesses and corporations, they're supposedly coming into Arizona with good paying jobs, that has not materialized. We've given over $1 billion in tax cuts, and how has it benefited LD 29? It hasn't. So once again, we are there every single day listening to what can we do. We could be better stewards of the taxpayer dollar and quit draining our general fund for programs that are not helping out this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
Would you read the question again, please?
Certainly. We've heard a lot tonight about cuts to education. What should we be cutting to better protect our budget? Please be specific.
Well, education has a lot of different avenues. We have the public education and the private and the charter and homeschooling, and now we have computer schooling. They all run on different kinds of budgets. The one that's the most expensive is public education. The one that usually scores the lowest is public education. It's a fact that's not really very well known that today our public schools are receiving more tax money than they've ever had in the entire history of the state. Now, that doesn't mean it's being allocated correctly, and a realignment of those allocations could net teacher increase in pay. It could do a lot of things for more programs. Administration has often not been forthright or even truthful in some instances. We've done a lot of research into this and have confronted school districts. We've given seminars on this, and we've even had the state attorney general's office write letters to school districts and told them that they were keeping their books incorrectly. And in one particular school district, they said the state attorney general was wrong and they were going to keep doing it the way they wanted. Perhaps a standardized audit board from the attorney general's office would help standardize the bookkeeping and allow us to see exactly how they're spending the money and for what. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nuttall.
Yes, there is a lot of money, taxpayers' money, that is being allotted to special interest groups. I would say let's get our priorities right, Arizona and the Senate, and say let's redirect these funds to the education field and really improve education in a lot of fronts. And just the history of America tells you that it doesn't take millions to give a superior education. We do need to pay our teachers a lot better than their pay. They're priceless. Teachers are priceless. And we need quality teachers because the teacher really impacts the student. So a teacher that's excited to go to their classroom, they'll have excited students to learn, and it doesn't take millions to learn and get a superior education. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada.
You know, this is an issue of budget priorities. And right now we have the wrong priorities at the state capitol with our budget. I'm going to echo what Representative Andrade said and mention private prisons. The amount of money that we have increased and put into private prison budgets is just astronomical, and it's unnecessary. And even heavily Republican states across the nation are taking steps back to reduce their prison populations. Arizona has failed to do that. Another issue is ESA expansion, empowerment scholarship accounts. These are scholarships that studies have shown go to parents who simply don't need that money. That's public taxpayer dollars that would have gone to public schools are instead being put in private accounts for wealthy individuals to send their kids to private schools. That program continues to expand every single year, and it's expanding unabated. We can stop that now, knowing that it doesn't serve kids who it's supposed to be serving, and save and put more of that money into the budget in other places. Lastly, corporate and special interest tax cuts. At the Capitol, there's a joke that we all joke around about. We call it the 4-inch pipe exemption, tax exemption. You get taxed if sales tax for 3-inch pipes. You get taxed for 5-inch pipes and every other pipe, but if you have a 4-inch pipe, your sales tax is exempted. Why is that? That's a special interest exemption, and we joke around about it every year saying, oh, it's another 4-inch pipe exemption, but our tax code is littered with those unnecessary and useless tax exemptions that we could be closing and putting millions back into our schools.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, your 30-second response.
Yes, and one thing I want to clarify, our administrative costs are the lowest in the nation, the lowest. Our schools are operating on pennies, and administrative costs are the lowest. And if people understood what administrative costs are, then you would have a better understanding, because a lot of people do not realize what administration really is in our districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will transition to the part of the debate where each candidate will receive a separate question with 1 minute to respond. Remember, you may still submit questions via note cards and direct them to specific candidates. The first question is for Mr. Wilson. Do you believe more money equals better education?
That's an easy question. No, it doesn't. History proves that. More money might make it easier in some cases, but as a general rule, the correlation really isn't there. We've also done studies on that. Arizona, as you know, is one of the lower states with funding. Washington, D.C. is the highest with over $20,000 per student spent. Our students come out much better educated than the ones in Washington, D.C. do. And if you study across the nation as a whole, you'll find that the top schools or scores are from the states that spend the least.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, how would you promote an environment for people to start businesses?
Well, right now, the biggest contributor to our economy is our small businesses. We need to give them the tax credits and the tax breaks when it comes to small businesses. But I want to make sure that when we do bring in these small businesses, that we're investing in them as well. And when they're successful and they're employing people in our neighborhoods, in our communities, then it's better for all of us. So let's take care of them. Let's quit giving the big tax cuts and tax breaks to these big corporations and big businesses, which absolutely aren't bringing in the jobs.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, excuse me 1 second. Are you going to continue to pursue sex education, including AIDS education for children, beginning with kindergarten?
Yes, I think that's a very important issue. What we need to do, the bill that I introduced last year, it clarified a state statute that right now precludes school districts from giving accurate sexual education information to their kids. I will absolutely introduce that again. I know it's a sensitive subject for a lot of people, but what that issue was brought to me when school districts came to me and said that their attorneys did not allow them to provide medically accurate sexual education information to their students. That addressed all issues of sex ed, including safe sex, abstinence, everything. They couldn't include a comprehensive program, and they felt that program, those limitations in the law, endangered their students. And if we are endangering our students, regardless of what your beliefs are about sexual activity, then we're failing our students. So I can't live with that, so I will continue to introduce that legislation.
Thank you. Ms. Nuttall, what would you do to the state police for the way they handled the Mr. Merritt freeway shooting case?
Could you repeat that question?
Sure. What would you do to the state police for the way they handled the Mr. Merritt freeway shooting case?
Well, I believe that substantial evidence really needed to be founded, not just by a pawn owner's coming up and getting his 15 minutes of fame. They really needed to investigate in a deeper way of forensic and what took place. And so a life was destroyed and a family. And I just really believe that we just need to not get off, just satisfy the public and saying, well, we got the shooter. They really need to have foundational, substantial evidence. And I believe that there needs to be rules and regulations for that. And I believe the governor was really anxious to get someone out there to be the fall guy, if they were guilty or not guilty. And so I would just
Thank you.
go in that direction. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, what is your view of the SNAP food stamp program?
I really don't know very much about the stamp food program. I'm not at this time qualified to give an opinion on it.
Okay, thank you. This question was sent to me for two people, and one of them was Mr. Andrade. Do you believe more money equals better education?
Yes, I do. I mean, when you look at our current funding for education, it's not working. So let's make better investments into education. Once again, is how are we going to do that? But making sure that our school boards, which already do a great job on what they're doing to allocate the funds, make sure that we elect the right people in our school boards that are going to properly fund our schools. And that's why we need to start taking a look at some of these school board members and see what they're doing, seeing their voting records as well, and making sure that they understand this is why it's so important that we support good school board members and not support the bad ones, because they are the ones that distribute the funds. They are the ones that allocate the funding for our schools in our school districts. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, will you try again to pass a bill to remove requirements to show ID, proof of citizenship, in order to vote?
Yes, absolutely. Again, this is a bill that had absolutely no purpose. And let me repeat that. It had no purpose. There was 0 instances of voter fraud taking place in the state of Arizona. Each one of our county recorders, all 15 of them, both Democrats and Republicans, testified before the committee that said there is no evidence whatsoever that there's any type of voter fraud taking place that warrants the need to show those types of burdensome IDs before casting a ballot. So what the effect of that bill has been is that it has precluded many elderly folks, many Native Americans, many individuals who don't have that type of ID or don't have a need for that ID from being able to cast a ballot without having to go out and seek that ID. So what does that mean? It may, to individuals like us, it may seem, well, that's not too difficult to go out and get an ID. But what that is effectively is it's a poll tax. And poll taxes are illegal in this country. We should not ever charge anybody anything in order to cast a ballot until those are... Stop there.
Thank you. Ms. Nuttall, the last time we cost accounted our K through 12 education, special education cost was in 2007. No one in the state of Arizona knows the last time we cost accounted the entire K through 12 education cost. How often should we cost account our K through 12 education and special education cost?
Okay, that's a long question, but I know we do not need taxpayers' money to teach sex education to sexualize our children. That's just, that disturbs me. And it's just not appropriate from K to high school to teach children about AIDS and that possibly homosexuality is an alternative lifestyle. So I would really get the basics down. I would get the building blocks that's missing in our education system, lay the foundation that really gives our children a superior education. And I just know that my opponent believes that he's the strongest progressive Democrat voice in the state Senate. And do we really want progressive bills that's not family friendly and not safe? And that would really bring in more taxpayers' money to have that. Thank you.
Next question for Mr. Wilson. What will you do to improve safety of our LD 29 neighborhoods?
The problem begins with a lack of community within the neighborhood. People feel isolated. They don't even know their neighbors most of the time. There's a lack of police presence. If we had neighborhood police where the residents knew him by name and he knew them by name, the crime rate would go way down. Same with that sense of community. When people know each other, they look out for each other. If it's a complete stranger and who knows, maybe the people do belong there that are going through the front door. But if you knew them, you would know those people don't belong there, and you'd call 911. So it really is bringing the people together, knitting them together as a community of neighbors that look out for each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, there's a proposed ballot initiative currently in the in the signature gathering stage that seeks to repeal Arizona's death penalty and replace it with life in prison. What is your stance on the death penalty?
When it comes to the death penalty, I don't believe in the death penalty. And it's funny because over time, when you learn more about the issues and you become more progressive, how many times has somebody been put to death and years later find out that they really weren't the ones that should have been put to death? We're making those bad choices, those bad decisions and everything. And even today you see when it comes to the drugs that are used to put somebody to death, and there's controversy in those. So right now I do not support the death penalty. I believe life imprisonment. And I also believe that we need to make sure that we rehabilitate people that can be rehabilitated in our prison system to become citizens back and return back to our society and be able to go back to a full-time job and provide for families and take care of the people that they love as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, why should we build and maintain the highest performing K-12 education system in the world right here in Arizona?
I'm sorry, was that why should we?
Why should we?
Well, I think it's I think that's the kind of the bedrock of what would make a better Arizona is a strong public education system. You look at who's in our schools now and who our population is going to look like tomorrow. The kids are our future; they really are. And to prepare them not only to lead in the future in government roles, but to lead in business, to lead in community advocacy, to lead in faith-based institutions, to lead in all aspects. We need our kids to be well educated in order to take that leadership role. That's why I've really dedicated my whole life to public education and serving the community in that role. As a school board member and as a legislator, fixing our schools, improving our schools, and investing in our schools is my number one priority.
Thank you. Ms. Nuttall, how would you protect polling places from ballot harvesting?
Well, I would have regulations in place that would prevent that, and also people that would be posted at the polls that would be trained to identify when that was taking place. And I would really go to the recorder's office, or really hold responsible the people that sets up those polling places, and really have heavy sanctions and not have leniency with that at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, what is your position toward increasing individual states' rights and granting less power to the federal government?
Well, the Constitution mandates that any area that is not specifically granted to the federal government is reserved to the states, and that's pretty plain language. The problem comes to when the federal government doesn't really recognize that as a fact, and then the states are intimidated into not standing up for what they're doing. So I would suggest that people read the Constitution and understand it, and that the disagreements would be less if the issues were spoken of from a factual basis and not an emotional one.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, what is your view of the American dream, and what should be the role of government in helping individuals achieve that dream?
Thank you so much for that question, because it is one of the American dreams. I am living that American dream. I am a third-generation railroader. My great-grandparents immigrated here from Mexico. They came here seeking that American dream, and as today, I am a success story. A younger brother who's a doctor, another brother who's a certified locomotive engineer. How do we reinforce that? By not discriminating against anybody in our nation. By making sure that people have access to quality education, that people have access to affordable health care, making sure that they have access to a great paying job when they have the education that they have attained to attain the American dream. And I believe strongly in labor, in unions, because unions do that. They fight for better paying jobs. They fight for health care. They fight for retirement. Today, I have one of the best retirements because of a union fighting for that. But it's been a struggle, and that's what many Americans face today.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, an audience member states that you asked for the Department of Justice to investigate the voting problems in Maryville during the last primary and the police shooting of a Native American Winslow citizen. Did you ask for an investigation of the state police handling of Mr. Merritt? Why or why not?
No, I did not ask for an investigation of Mr. Merritt, but I'm not sure that's not something that we should be asking for. I think that I watched that situation play itself out, and I think it was more an issue of timing more than anything, but the fact that Mr. Merritt was indicted, arrested, and then celebrated as the perpetrator of this crime, and the county attorney's office was unable to prosecute him for that crime, it shows a big problem in our criminal justice system. I think that the way that case played itself out definitely needs to be reviewed, and I think that's something that our candidates that are running for county attorney in particular should be addressing, because that was definitely a failure on the part of our criminal justice system. There are lots of issues that I think need to be addressed in our criminal justice system, and I think that's one of them. The fact that I didn't ask for a DOJ investigation of it, I don't think is symbolic of the fact that I don't think that was another example of that.
Time is up. Thank you. Ms. Nuttall, what is your position regarding children of undocumented illegal immigrants born in the United States being granted legal citizenship?
I do believe in the Constitution. I believe in the rule of law. I know that the laws has been laid down for over 200 years of people entering America as a citizen. And I know that compassion comes in with a child that's been born here and their parents are undocumented. Is that what you're asking? Their parents the children's been born here?
Yes. What's your position regarding the children of those parents being granted legal citizenship? Do you think they should be granted legal citizenship?
Well, I know of many parents that come in here just for the sole purpose of their children being born here. And so they wouldn't be deported. And I think that maybe each situation should be reviewed and investigated for the child's sake and go from their history. But I am I'm against amnesty. I am a true constitutionalist, and I believe that God laid that down for America to be the greatest nation on the earth.
Thank you. Time's up. Mr. Wilson, what are your thoughts regarding increasing the state's minimum wage?
I would be opposed to that because I feel that the minimum wage has never been supposed to be a living wage. It's a wage for people that are starting in the job market, your teenagers. They need to start someplace, and that's the place to start. If people have skills, they're not interested in a minimum wage job. So it gets back to education once again. And that seems to be universally the biggest problem we've talked about all night long is education. And it has ramifications that spread into every other facet of our lives. So, but no, if you take and raise the minimum wage so high that then teenagers don't get their job, you've done them a big disservice, and that's unintended consequences that we want to avoid.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, in the event of a budget shortfall, what is your philosophy and approach?
When it comes to a budget shortfall, well, we need to be better stewards of the taxpayer dollar. Once again, even though we're talking about a budget shortfall, we still found money to fund for-profit private prisons. And right now in our coffers, we have close to $1 billion, and we're still cutting programs for our most needy, for our most vulnerable here in LD 29. Why are we doing that? We need to be better stewards of the taxpayer dollar, and we need to start funding what we need to start doing to take care of vulnerable families in our district, restoring the cuts to SNAP and TANF, making sure that we look at, when it comes to education funding, we still found money to take care of ESAs and school vouchers. So once again, it goes back to the legislature being better stewards of the taxpayer dollar.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, audience member states, I believe we have a plethora of existing laws and they are not being enforced. How would you deal with this issue?
That's a great question. I think that there is a lot of cleanup that we could be doing with our Arizona revised statutes right now. Most of the bills that we deal with at the legislature every year are cleanups of old laws that were passed and were done mistakes were found or they found out they just simply didn't work. So a lot of that cleanup can be done. A lot of laws that aren't being enforced or aren't necessary anymore can be removed from the books. I'll give you a perfect example of that right now, which not everyone might agree with, but Senate Bill 1070. A large majority of that bill has been struck down by the courts as unconstitutional, yet each part of that law is still on the books in Arizona. Why? It's unenforceable, it's unconstitutional, yet it's still part of our books. Laws just like that, and there's a whole bunch of other ones that have been found unconstitutional by our courts, we could be removing from them, cleaning up our statutes, and putting in laws that are effective and better serve the people of Arizona.
Thank you. Ms. Nettle, reports over the last couple of years have noted that Arizona has one of the worst shortages of doctors in the United States. How would you attempt to address this issue as an elected official?
Well, I don't know when that stats came into play, if it was 2008 when Obamacare came in. I know that doctors have been just falling out of the field of their profession since then. And I believe we need to go back before 2008 and see what worked. And we were a great state with help, everybody seemed to be happy with their doctor and their plans. And we need to go back to what works in the schools, in the healthcare, and it's a pretty simple solution. Just go back to the measuring line, even with, homeschoolers. When the children when they're correctly homeschooled, they have a higher STA scores for colleges. So that proves right there you don't have to have millions to give a student a superior education. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, what is your position regarding the state government funding programs that serve families living in poverty?
The state, and I'm not real familiar with all the different programs that may exist, but again, we shouldn't attack these big problems in a piecemeal fashion, running around putting out fires, stop the fire from starting. So in this case, it would be have an overall idea of, first of all, trying to keep people from ever getting into that situation. And when they do, the state should their focus should be on getting them out of poverty, not in entrapping them in a impoverished situation where you have multi-generational problems. Perhaps department heads should be rewarded for the number of people that they bring out of those situations rather than the number of people they have in the situation.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, what is your position toward the expansion of regulations on gun ownership in Arizona?
Right now, we have a real bad problem with mass shootings here in our nation. We need to take better control. Yes, that's why I believe in comprehensive background checks. We need to find out who should own a gun and who shouldn't. Too many of our mentally ill have ownership of guns, and a classic example was down in Tucson with Gabby Giffords. That should have never taken place, but had we had comprehensive background checks implemented and in place, that would have never, most likelihood of that never happening would have never happened. So that is why I support comprehensive background checks to keep guns out of the wrong people's hands. And for the record, I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I am a veteran in the Air Force. We were properly trained on how to handle weapons. That doesn't mean we should just hand over assault rifles without the proper training when it comes to those issues as well.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, what is your position on requiring police officers to wear body cameras?
I think that's I think it's a worthy effort that we should be doing. Although that isn't necessarily a state-level issue, a lot of local municipalities are choosing to do that on their own already, and a lot of them are choosing to do it because the police themselves have asked for those body cameras to be implemented. The big problem with that is the cost, because it's not just a camera that you apply to a uniform, it's the amount of data that needs to be stored so that you save all of that video that gets recorded. That's a big cost. And if we're able to find a way to pay for that, then I think it's good. I think the underlying issue is that we need to improve the relationship between our law enforcement and our communities. The more shootings that take place, there was just one that happened earlier today that I just got news of. The greater the distrust there is between law enforcement and our community, the less safe we are all going to be. If body cameras aid in that effort, then I'm all for them.
Thank you. Ms. Nettle, what is your perspective on Arizona's law to allow the use of marijuana for medical purposes?
Well, I believe that it would increase a lot of, it would damage the family unit in ways that we can't even imagine. I understand now that marijuana is grown in a way that it doesn't even have the properties that the original marijuana was grown 20 years, 30 years ago. And there's statistics from Denver or Colorado that shows that there's been a lot of dangers involved with the family and just the environment. And people are even afraid to get on the roads. I know my friend lives in Colorado, and it's just, it really brings harm to the community, and that's my perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, what are your thoughts about renewable energy, solar, wind, hydro, et cetera, generation in Arizona?
I didn't hear about the fifth word in there.
What are your thoughts about renewable energy generation in Arizona?
Well, I think it would be nice if, in a perfect world, all our energy was produced in that way. But you have cost issues involved for the homeowner, and the homeowner and the utility companies both should pursue that which produces the most electricity at the least cost, doing the least amount of damage to the environment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Andrade, in recent years, states such as California and Vermont have instituted automatic voter registration as a means to expand the electorate. What is your position on such an idea for Arizona?
It's a great idea. every day when I'm there at the state legislature, I listen to all about this voter fraud that doesn't exist. I listen to about this ballot harvesting bill that was going to take care of problems that did not exist. That's the kind of legislation and fear we have, that there's voter fraud that exists. I just want people to realize this. Working your butt off to get elected for a job that doesn't pay well doesn't make sense when we hear about all this voter fraud. Now, people have a right to vote, and we should be making sure that we expand that and making sure that everybody gets an opportunity to vote, regardless what party you belong to. One thing that really burned me up about this past session, that independents need to decide which party they need to belong to. Why do you think they're independents? So once again, I'm in favor of any measure that allows every citizen eligible to vote.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, under what conditions should the state invest additional resources into rehabilitating those in the criminal justice system, particularly juveniles?
Well, particularly for juveniles, a lot more than we are doing now. Our criminal justice, and this kind of gets back to kind of some basic underlying philosophies about the way we handle criminal justice. Is it supposed to be a retributive program or a rehabilitative program? I do believe that we can and should have a rehabilitative program, rehabilitative criminal justice system, where people are punished for wrongs that they have done, but then they are rehabilitated so that when they are done with whatever their sentence is, they can re-enter into society and be successful in contributing members of our society. Instead, right now, we have a punishment-only model that sets people up for failure. It sets people up for recidivism. It doesn't address the underlying issues of mental health, of substance abuse, or jobs. And so people are continuing to recidivate, and you have to ask yourself, why do we have this model? And you get back to the whole private prison discussion that we've had earlier, and what ends up happening is we end up recycling people through these private prison systems.
Thank you. Ms. Nuttall, if elected, what steps would you take to continue diversifying Arizona's economy, and what industries or sectors would you focus on?
Well, I think I spoke on that quite a bit tonight. The economy that would bring better jobs, an economy that would offer low-income families to improve their lifestyle, that their children can have just a great education as those that live in Scottsdale. And I would just work very hard and very effortlessly, or with great effort, not effortlessly, with great effort, to implement jobs and vocation, schools to improve our economy in every way that I would know how to do so. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, the vote on Proposition 123, the Arizona Education Finance Amendment, was very close. Were you supportive of the measure? If so, why? And if not, why not?
I was not in favor of that, and the reason was because I went to a couple of seminars, or at least speeches, by the state treasurer, and his arguments trumped all the arguments for it. The measure wasn't going to do what it was said to propose that it would do, and it did a lot of things that they said it wouldn't do, like raising taxes, and it was a very thorough presentation by the state treasurer, and I am for funding education, but honestly, and that's why I opposed it.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade, what are your thoughts on the United States further restricting immigration?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. What are your thoughts on the United States further restricting immigration?
Every year we heard about Congress, about this immigration bill. I believe in comprehensive immigration reform in our nation. Part of that immigration bill that never gets heard, that everybody fights against, that we always hear about, needs to be passed, because we need to lead a pathway to citizenship here in the United States. We have too many people here who want to be citizens, but it takes years and it takes thousands of dollars. It should not take thousands of dollars and many years to become a U.S. citizen. We need to shorten that pathway, because the sooner we get them here in the United States as an American citizen, the better it is for all of us in our nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada, what do you believe is the appropriate role state government should play in encouraging job creation?
I think the state government plays a very important role in that as well. I think, again, it's not only the government's job, but it's the government in cooperation with the business community, in cooperation with our schools. But yeah, job creation is a part of ensuring that we have a market that is sustainable, that is providing resources to our state, so tax revenue for us to be funding all of the programs that we are required and that we want to provide for our citizens. And a strong economy and a strong business community is good for all of us. So I definitely think that the state plays a very valuable role in that, and that's something that we should all be looking to do to find ways to balance all of those interests, not just the business interests, but all of them.
Thank you. Ms. Nuttall, regarding higher education, what do you think the legislature should do to address college affordability and expand access?
Expand access to go to college, you mean?
What do you think the legislature should do to address college affordability and expand access to college?
Well, I believe that every child and every graduate should have that opportunity to go to college. They need to be college ready. They're coming out of high school like barely on a 6th grade level. And I would really work on implementing those subsidies to bring their skills to a level where they can even go to college. And are you talking about the funding of college as well, with the state funds to go to college?
It's just, what do you think the legislature should do to address college affordability and expand
affordability?
Access?
Okay. Well, it goes back to redirecting the funds again. I believe that, the parents, that they set their money aside for savings, but there should be some funds from the state that would implement that. Thank you.
So now we are at the point where we'll have our closing remarks. The first closing statement will be given by Mr. Wilson.
Well, I am a longtime resident of LD 29, and I think you can see that for the most part, everybody kind of agrees on the problems. It's the approach to solving those problems where we differ. The definition of insanity is when you keep doing the same thing over and over again and it doesn't work. And our Democratic friends have had control of LD 29 for a long time, and the problems have not abated. So I'm saying, let's try something new. And I would appreciate your vote and work hard for you in a new way, with individual responsibility and the focus on individual people and families that will make common sense and resolve problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade.
Yes, this evening you have heard from different candidates running for office. I'm running for re-election to continue to represent my district, to represent my heavily Democrat Latino district. I understand the problems in this district and realize what we need to do in order to fix them, but the majority doesn't understand. The cuts to education, the cuts to our most vulnerable continues on. I am in favor of raising the minimum wage because we have too many families that are struggling every day to put food on the table, to keep the electricity on. I'm in favor of legalizing marijuana because we incarcerate more than we do educate. So what do we need? We need a change in our state. We need a change in our state that's going to bring our state forward, to be more progressive on the issues, to take care of everybody, including and especially our LGBT community, who was targeted 2 years ago with some bad legislation. And I will continue to do that, to be the voice of all working families. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quesada.
I want to start by saying thank you to the Clean Elections Commission for hosting this debate. I'm a big supporter of clean elections in Arizona. Thank you to the audience, everyone that came out. It's always good to see some faces in the crowd, even if we don't agree on everything. I want to thank my opponent for showing up and for being here. I think that means a lot. It says a lot about her to be here, because as you'll notice, there are certain candidates that simply chose not to show up on both sides of the aisle, and that says a lot about both of them. I'm looking to be a voice for all of LD 29. I'm looking to earn your vote again and be a pragmatic voice that can see all sides of every issue. There was a lot of things that were said here tonight by all the candidates, and I can tell you I disagreed with some of it, but I agreed with some of it as well, even some that came from the opposite party candidates that were here. I approach my role in governing in that same way, and I try to find the best solution regardless of party preference, and do what's best for the people of District 29 and for all of Arizona. I'll continue to do that if I'm elected again. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nuttall.
Yes, I'd like to thank Clean Elections for having this debate as well. I am running on the platform as a stateswoman, not a politician. I have a proven track record that I put on my boots and I get down in the dirt with those that are hurting, those that have a life that needs to be improved upon. I have been a voice in the House and the Senate since 1993. I've helped in other campaigns with people winning their candidacy. And I just am asking for your vote, because I will be your voice and really bring changes, positive changes for Arizona that needs to be in place. Thank you.
Thank you. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating in our forum, and to our audience members, we thank all of you who took the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit www.azcleanelections.gov, where you can find information on the upcoming elections, download the Clean Elections app, and learn about the candidates running for office. A link to the video of this debate, as well as other Clean Elections debates, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of a scheduled debate. Please fill out the debate evaluation form you received as you entered and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the Commission and will help improve future debates. Thank you all for coming tonight, and you're welcome to stay and speak directly with the candidates.